Once upon a time, there was a young and beautiful girl named Laila, who lived with her mother in a small village surrounded by a beautiful forest. She was known as Little Red Riding Hood because she always loved wearing the red coat her grandmother gave her for her birthday. One spring morning, after her mother had finished baking some cakes and placed them in a small basket, she said, "My dear child, put on your red coat and take this basket to your grandmother to check on her, as I've heard she is sick and needs someone to care for her." After putting on her red coat and eagerly picking up the basket, Laila headed to the door. Her mother stopped her and said, "Be careful, Laila. Don't stray from the path. Go straight to your grandmother's house, and when you get there, greet her politely and be kind when you talk to her." Laila kissed her mother and reassured her, "Don't worry, Mama, I'll be fine." She then hurried out, following her mother's instructions until she reached the forest where her grandmother lived. There, the wolf saw her. Little Laila wasn't afraid because she was just a child, full of love, unaware of the wolf's cunning nature. The wolf approached Laila and asked, "What's your name, little one?" She replied, "My name is Laila, and the villagers call me Little Red Riding Hood." The wolf then asked, "Where are you going so early in the day, Laila?" She told him that she was going to visit her sick grandmother, as her mother had asked, and that she had brought her a basket of cakes. The wolf, with a sly smile, said, "How lovely, Laila. You are such an obedient girl." Laila didn't notice the wolf's trickery and felt flattered, thinking he was a kind creature like her. She smiled innocently and said, "Thank you, Mr. Wolf. You're very kind, and I wish we could be friends." The wolf was delighted that he had managed to deceive her and make her trust him, knowing that this would make his plan easier. He then seized the opportunity and said, "Why don't you tell me where your grandmother lives, so we can race to see who gets there first?" Laila, in her innocence, answered, "My grandmother lives in a small wooden house at the edge of the forest." The wolf, with a wicked grin, said, "All right then, I'll take this path, and you take the other." The wolf hurried off as fast as he could, and while Laila was on her way to her grandmother's house, she saw some beautiful flowers a short distance off the path. Being a lover of colorful flowers, she couldn't resist their beauty and wanted to pick some for her grandmother, knowing how much she loved flowers and that they would cheer her up during her illness. Laila thought it would make a lovely gift since she hadn't seen her grandmother in a while. After a moment of hesitation, she decided to ignore her mother's warning, believing that the flowers would make her grandmother so happy that her mother would forget what she had done. Meanwhile, the wolf had already found the grandmother's house, and Laila had not yet arrived. The wolf, who knew the forest well, had taken a shortcut. When he reached the house, he knocked on the door. Too sick to get out of bed, the grandmother asked from inside, "Who's there?" The wolf, trying to disguise his voice, said, "It's me, Laila, your granddaughter." The grandmother, hesitantly ignoring the strangeness of the voice, said, "All right, come in, my dear." The cunning wolf entered the house, and the grandmother was terrified when she saw him. She tried to scream for help, but no one heard her. The wolf grabbed her and locked her in the closet, threatening to eat her if she made a sound. He then put on her clothes and lay down in her bed, eagerly awaiting Laila's arrival to carry out his plan. Moments later, Laila reached her grandmother's house, unaware of the wolf's presence. She was still happy with the beautiful flowers she had picked for her grandmother and knocked on the door. The wolf, trying to imitate the grandmother's voice, asked, "Who's there?" Laila excitedly replied, "It's me, Laila! I've brought you a beautiful surprise." The wolf said, "Come in, my dear." Laila entered as usual, kissed her grandmother's head, but felt something was odd, though she attributed it to the fact that she hadn't seen her grandmother in a while. She also noticed an unusual quietness because her grandmother was usually thrilled to see her. The wolf interrupted Laila's thoughts, saying, "What beautiful flowers, Laila. Thank you, my dear." Laila was reassured for a moment and placed the flowers in a glass of water on a small table beside the bed. She then sat by the bed but noticed something strange about her grandmother's appearance. Innocently, she asked, "Grandmother, why are your eyes so big?" The wolf, still disguised, replied, "So I can see you better, my dear." Laila then noticed something else odd and asked again, "Why are your ears so big?" The wolf cunningly replied, so I can hear your sweet voice better, my dear." Finally, Laila looked at her grandmother's mouth and asked, "Why is your mouth so big?" The wolf, now revealing his true nature, snarled, "So I can eat you!" He lunged at Laila, ready to devour her. Laila screamed as loud as she could, calling for help. Fortunately, a hunter who was passing by the house heard her cries. He rushed in and shot the wolf, killing him. Laila cried as she searched for her grandmother with the hunter. She kept crying until they found her locked in the closet. The hunter helped her get out, and Laila hugged her grandmother, feeling guilty for not listening to her mother's warning. Her grandmother comforted her, reminding her to always follow her mother's advice. Laila wiped away her tears, kissed her grandmother, and promised that she had learned a lesson she would never forget. Finally, Laila and her grandmother thanked the hunter for saving them, and Laila stayed with her grandmother that day, grateful and happy that her grandmother was safe.